How I learned to speak English. As you may know or may have guessed, I am not a native English speaker. I am French and I spent the first 24 years of my life in France, eating baguettes and cheese, while wearing a marinière and a beret. I had my first English lesson when I was 10. I still remember learning to say hello, my name is Aunt Charlotte, I am 10 years old and I live in Vendée. 19 years later, I live in Dublin, and I speak and write in English on a daily basis. My accent is still very French and I am sure my writing sounds French too. I wanted to share with you some of the things I did to improve my English. It may not be useful for everyone, but it may help if you want to learn another language or to practice a language again. When I was in college and high school, I listened to BBC News and British radio shows. I just put the TV or computer on and did my stuff. The idea was to have some English background noise. Sometimes I listened to what the presenters were saying to learn vocabulary or identify the grammatical structure. I was also listening to a lot of music and learning song lyrics from the Beatles to My Chemical Romance. I listened first without looking at the lyrics and then I printed the lyrics. We were in the early 2000s and sang along. I also watched movies with English subtitles or watched videos online. When I knew I was moving to Ireland, I started to watch videos of Irish YouTubers and to listen to Irish radio shows. My idea was to hear Irish accents and see how different they were from British English or American English. Hearing different accents also really helped me to accept my French accent. When I was a teenager, I told myself that I would consider myself fluent only when my French accent would be completely gone, which means that I'm currently not fluent, which also means that teenage me was a bit of a perfectionist. I know some people go abroad without knowing a single word of a foreign language, and I truly admire that. However, I think it's important to attend at least a few classes to learn the most basic rules of grammar of the language you want to learn, just so you know the alphabet, the sentence structure or conjugation. The better you speak a foreign language, the more opportunities you'll have. You will be more likely to go to university or get a better job depending on what you want to achieve and how long you want to stay in the country, of course. There are also so many studies showing that learning a second language is good for your brain. So go for it, but learn the basics first. You can also use Duolingo or similar apps, as they're very good for vocabulary, but not so much for grammar in my opinion. Read newspapers, read books, fiction and non-fiction, read articles, blogs, and social media posts which are in English and interesting for you. Read and take notes of the vocabulary you don't understand. Read and observe the structure of each sentence and paragraph. Read out loud to know where to breath and where to stop. I'm still practicing this one, as I'm very often out of breath when I read out loud in English. My problem is that I read English as if it was French. Spoiler alert, it's not, even though the English language has been strongly influenced by French language. I'm going to tell you the tale of some French people I meet in Dublin. They come to Ireland to practice their English. They have a customer services job where they speak to French clients. Their teammates are French, and they barely use other languages at work. Once off, they go for drinks with their French friends and complain that their English hasn't improved since they arrived 6 months ago. I know how important it is to be with people from your community. When you're abroad, only people who live or lived abroad can understand the feeling of relief when you meet someone who speaks your native language. But please, don't spend all your time with them. Go to meetups, Speak with colleagues who don't speak your native language. Go to a pottery or Pilates or a gardening class. Join a book club. If you aim to learn a foreign language abroad, don't stay with people who speak your native language. If you're not living in the country where the language you want to learn is spoken, use online events or get in touch with the embassy or places such as the French Alliance Francaise or the Spanish Instituto Cervantes. A couple of years ago, I remember going to the Alliance Francaise in Dublin to watch a French movie. It was a good way to meet other French people, but there were also a lot of non-French people who wanted to spend some time speaking French and learning more about French culture. This one may depend on your cultural background. French people, for instance, are very judgmental. We want things to be perfect, and we are afraid to look stupid. We also don't really learn to speak foreign languages at school. We learn to write, to listen, and to read them though. As a consequence, when I started to learn English, I was unable to speak. I read English. I understood spoken English, but when I had to speak, I would just freeze. One day in London, I was so self-conscious that I couldn't even say I'll take the smoked salmon to a waitress taking my order. I just pointed the dish I wanted on the menu and muttered something. I think that one of the reasons why I wanted to move abroad, I knew that if I wanted to speak English, I had to live in a country where my French would be useless. I'm not telling you to move abroad to learn a foreign language. My piece of advice is to not be afraid to speak and refer to point number 4. The more you'll speak, the more comfortable you'll be. Remember how happy you feel when someone makes an effort to speak your native language. Most of native speakers will be happy to help you. I'm always happy to help when someone tries to speak French. I know how vulnerable you can feel when speaking another language. I hope my story will be useful to the ones learning a new language, or that it motivated you to keep practicing.